So the needle just isn't moving on the indices. The Nifty is still about 40-odd points lower. There's some selling on Maruti that's quite apparent now. Some of the auto stocks in the morning at least were having a better day. Now Maruti is down about 1.5%. There you go. So the sellers are really now piling up the pressure. Krishna, just quick thoughts on both of these sectors. We were just discussing IT, Anuj and myself. So what is your stance on IT? And after this huge selling in auto, are you looking to add up and buy more?
No, IT again is a sector where we've been bullish for broad part of the last year completely. Even in the year ahead, we reasonably, positive. Maybe the extent of overweight can perhaps be lower, but the broad idea is that these companies are basically growing on their own, having reasonable growth rate which they are expecting. Only headwind you can call it is really the global economy, where in case something really slows down from the world economy perspective, maybe something from US perspective if it happens, and these companies can possibly end up being in some sort of business pressures as such. But otherwise, the rupee has been a pretty good tailwind. Last year's movement of rupee perhaps would have improved the competitiveness for some of these players in terms of their ability to generate bigger businesses. The year ahead is full of quite a few deals likely to come up. So on an average, you are still positive about the space. Coming to automobile, well, a lot of things change in last couple of months in terms of maybe October to December period has been quite weak for automobile sales. Multiple reasons, but at the same time, broadly the same thing. The demography favors automobile consumption as a product, as a lifestyle product for a lot of people, whether it's two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. So to an extent, the basic longer-term story of automobile penetration, etc., plays out in India. What perhaps is required is a little bit of a comfort. So maybe what happened last 3-4 months was really industry was hit by 2-3 things same time. The total cost of ownership went up. We had insurance cost impact which came up one time.
Sure.
Maybe the way the fuel price went up, and perhaps for some period of time NBFCs really went pretty slow on their business on lending, and to an extent it's partly might be a some sort of a situation where lack of fund availability perhaps was another variable which caused this.
Got that point, Krishna. Thanks a lot for joining us today. It was good talking to you, and we hope to talk to you more often as we move on. Just about 6 minutes left for markets to close. Ashwini, what would be your verdict for the day? It's been a slow day, of course, but key levels have been defended. Thoughts for trade tomorrow?
See, one thing is that mid caps, the junior Nifty continues to move up and probably close at the highs of the day. The other thing is that within the bank Nifty, the corporate banks have halved their losses and retail banks have gone down even further. So I wouldn't be very surprised if this corporate lending rally restarts again tomorrow. Overall, we have to cross this 10,950 to get anywhere. Otherwise, the market will keep slowing down. It's a contraction. What will make it break out? That probably we'll have to see. But corporate lenders is the space to be in on all declines.
Oh, yes. Yes Bank, by the way, is making a huge move right now. In the context, it makes yesterday it made 3-4 rupee move down but on the way up, and from trading point of view, it makes a big move, of course.
Well, the 32nd meeting of the GST Council has just concluded. There were no rate rationalization decisions that were taken by the Council. None were expected, and the Finance Minister making it clear that till we see revenue stabilize and, in fact, shore up, more rate cuts cannot be expected. What we have seen is some improvement as far as compliance is concerned for small traders and MSMEs. Several measures have been taken to try and reduce the compliance burden for that community. Some decisions have been deferred related to the real estate sector. For instance, a GOM will now be set up to take that issue forward, and that 1% calamity cess, that was the recommendation of the Kerala government. It got the approval of the group of ministers. That has now been ratified by the GST Council. A 1% cess can be levied by Kerala for 2 years to shore up funds for the state's rehabilitation. But the Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey is in conversation with our colleague Sapna Das. Listen in.
In terms of relief for common taxpayers, I would not like to go into the specific decisions, but I mean, so much of change, even at this stage, what does it really mean? I mean, going forward, can you expect some more changes? Because, 20 lakh, 40 lakh, then another one for service suppliers. Then again on the MSME, the turnover threshold, that is an old proposal. I suppose now the council has gone ahead and implemented. So what is the overall approach?
See, the GST Council has always been very sensitive to the requirement of business and also to reduce the compliance requirement without much impacting the revenue. So in today's meeting, what the GST Council has approved is that the turnover for the composition has been increased from 1 crore to 1.5 crore. And also to reduce compliance burden on those composition business. They will now be required only to file an annual return instead of quarterly return and make quarterly payment. So this will substantially reduce this compliance requirement on the composition business.
But it took quite
Other very important decision that has been taken is to increase the threshold from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs.
That's optional.
So for the, no, I mean it's a threshold, right, for the goods. So only those businesses whose turnover exceeds 40 lakh, they will be required to take registration if they are dealing in the goods. And the other important decision that has been taken is that those who are providing these services, they will also be eligible for composition if their turnover is below 50 lakh and they have to just pay 6% of the GST, 3% CGST and 3% for the SGST and only file an annual return and make quarterly payments. So these are the few major decisions which have been taken in the GST Council.
One more quick question. In fact, I'm going to put two of them together. I asked this question to the finance minister. In the last meeting also, there was a discussion on, a couple of big ticket items like cement and other sectors. He said very clearly that we'll take further call looking at the revenue position. How do you look at the revenue position at this stage in time, and that too just 2.5 months before the fiscal ends and first February interim budget?
See, the issue of cement was not discussed it was not on the agenda and it was not discussed.
But I just give that as an example.
As it has been already stated by our Honorable Finance Minister, that any further rate reduction will be decided only after watching the revenue for the next few months. How revenue matter is stabilized.
So where are you on the shortfall right now? Last question.
No, I mean in the sense this shortfall
Last time you indicated 60 to 70 approximately.
No. See, the question is that shortfall with respect to what? So I mean,
GST.
right. So the next 3 months the revenue is already we are in the process. Every month we used to get around 98,000 crores so far the GST overall was concerned. In the month of December, we got around 95,000 crores. So let us see during the next 3 months in which direction our revenue goes, and then any decision about the rate reduction will arise.
And thanks for taking your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that is Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey speaking to CNBC TV 18. As I pointed out, no decision on any rate rationalization. The Finance Minister as well as the Revenue Secretary making it clear that they need to see revenues shoring up before they see any further rate rationalization. Cement, of course, is one of the big asks where the expectation is that there will be a rate cut. But to discuss the decisions that have been taken, joining us now, MS Money partner at Deloitte and Prateek Jain, leader of indirect tax at PwC. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. Prateek, let me start by asking you, a bulk of the measures and the announcements coming in from the GST Council today have to deal with trying to reduce the compliance burden for small traders and for the MSME sector. How significant are these measures? Obviously, they've come late in the day, but do you believe that this will now provide much needed relief?
Yes, it will. I mean, I think I'm particularly happy that the threshold has been increased from 20 to 40 and not to 75, because 75 lakh to me appeared a very high threshold to start with if you compare what used to happen earlier. And you also need to expand the tax base in addition to providing relief to the smaller taxpayers. So that's good. Also, the for services sector, which had been a demand for the industry for a long time, that why are you only limiting the competition for manufacturing traders? So that has been done. But interestingly, a 6% new rate has been introduced for the first time. It was not there earlier. So 6% is the new rate which has got notified. I'm not sure whether now GST Council, obviously, while we are trying to provide relief, they should ensure that they're consistent in the tax policy. So now this option has been given to states that whether they want to make it 20 to 40, and few states will be at 20, few states will be 40, maybe few states will be between 20 and 40. I don't think that's the best way to deal with the issue. And also on cess, I've said earlier as well that this calamity cess and other cesses are never a good idea. You know, it will set up precedents unnecessarily, and other states may also demand it later. So, of course, from a MSME front, I think nothing to complain about. But I'm a little worried about the, consistency which has been lost here by imposing this cess and, by allowing the states to have different threshold.
Right. Mani, would you agree with the concerns raised there by Prateek? One, the introduction of a new rate. We now have a 6% rate. This is as far as service providers with a turnover below 50 lakh rupees. And also this business of the option being given to states for registration between 20 to 40 lakh rupees. Do you believe that this makes the whole exercise more inconsistent and patchy?
Look, I think that there are specific concerns which need to be addressed from time to time. And therefore, while 6% does not fit within the overall GST architecture, we already have violations made in the past for precious metals where we have a 3% rate. So possibly a 6% rate only for certain category of people may not complicate things much. The way I look at this is to say that by increasing the threshold from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs and by upping the composition scheme to 1.5 crores, with a once-in-a-year filing, we are significantly reducing the load on the GSTN and the indirect tax portal. Many people who were in the 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs threshold are now out. Many other people who were in the above 1 crore threshold are now out if they are within 1.5 crores, and they need to again file a return once in a year. So in one shot, I would say what has happened is the GST portal will now become very, very efficient because the load has been significantly reduced. Now, as I understand it, this has been one of the primary reasons because this category of taxpayers do not contribute significantly to the tax revenue. And they are here essentially to ensure that the value chain is not disturbed. So by having a payment which is made every quarter and by having the return filing once a year and increasing the threshold to 40 lakhs, in one stroke what we have done is we have ensured that the value chain is not disturbed, but at the same time, the load on the system is reduced. Now, that, to my mind, is a very, very welcome step as I see it.
Okay. Just in terms of the decisions that were deferred and the decision on real estate, which was much anticipated, it was carried forward from the last GST Council meeting. That has now been referred to a group of ministers. Prateek, would you say that that, in a sense, is good news? Because there have been concerns raised by real estate companies on the lack of ITC.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's good news. So I don't think composition is a good idea for any sector. Forget about real estate, and real estate more particularly because there is you want to formalize the sector itself, right? So 5% rate without input credit would have led to complications. There would be incentivization for cash transactions, and also from a customer standpoint, and the base value of the property will increase because you won't get the input credit, and therefore you'll have to increase the price. That will be a little more complicated. What I was hearing was that there was a proposal of making it either 5% without input credit or 8% with input credit. Maybe they need to think through this more. I think the better idea would be to make it 8% with input credit, and that will be much less complicated. As I said earlier, I think GST Council should refrain from putting up quick fix solutions to larger sort of problems, and they should remember the GST. The objective of GST was that it has to be simple, transparent, and a wide-based kind of a regime. So I think it's good news. Let's see what the group of ministers decide.
That's correct. We still need to see what happens there. But Mani, before I let you both go, on this issue of rate rationalization, further rate rationalization, the finance minister saying that, look, we need to see the revenue picture before we rationalize rates further. Now, ahead of the elections, I would imagine that we're probably going to see one or maybe two council meetings. So do you think that this is now going to be the rate rate basket that we're going to have to live with, at least for the tenure of this particular government? Or do you anticipate that perhaps at the very fag end, we will see things like cement, etc., getting rationalized?
Okay, so I think the first point over here is that Christmas typically comes once a year. We have had a Christmas only recently where we had large number of rate reductions. And to expect, Christmas season, to expect Santa Claus to come within 20 days all over again is a little unrealistic. Having said that, the fact that the finance minister said that further rate acceleration would depend largely on revenues is, to my mind, a sign that, we are looking at it in a very mature manner. We are not having any knee-jerk reaction. Neither are we making rate changes as and when people want rate changes. So we are going about it to ensure that whatever rate reductions happen comprehensively. My sense would be there are still a few products where we would see rate rationalization over maybe the next 2 months or so. And I guess we'll have possibly 1 or 2 more meetings before the election. I'm not too sure whether we'll have 1 more meeting before the budget. That does not seem to be too likely. But depending on when they happen, it is better that we have a rate rationalization exercise done comprehensively in respect of something as important as, let us say, the real estate sector. It's better we look at it comprehensively instead of looking at it, piecemeal. And whenever that happens, also look at cement, because that constitutes a significant part of the real estate sector.
Yes, it does. And that decision has not been taken. It was not on the agenda today. Prateek Mani, let's listen into the Finance Minister of Kerala, Thomas Isaac. Prateek was raising concerns on the calamity cess of 1% that has now been, the option to impose that has been cleared by the GST Council. Here's the Kerala Finance Minister, Thomas Isaac.
The manufacturers up to 1.5 crores were exempt from excise under the earlier regime. Now they will have to pay GST. So there's an issue and concern. And therefore we have decided to raise the composition level up to 1.5 crores. So, and they will have to pay, they have to submit the return only once in a year. So compliance cost has very drastically come down, and the tax incidence also reduced to 1%. That's a major concession.
So earlier, sir, was it 2%, 1 plus 1?
No, just 1%. But normally, once in the non-composition, people had to pay the normal rate. So it's a big concession to them. Second, we also debated about the possibility of raising the threshold level when they come into the tax net. So we decided there would be also 2 threshold levels. 20 lakh crores, 20 lakh rupees and 40 lakh rupees. And the state can choose whether the threshold level should be 20 lakh or 40 lakh. Because there are many small states where if you make it 40 lakh, virtually 90% of the taxpayers will be out of the net. So this is one major decision. Second, the service providers, suppliers. The GST on them earlier was the threshold level was 20. And they would have to pay 18%. So that's, we thought, everybody felt it was a relatively high rate of tax, which was preventing expansion of the tax base. And therefore we introduced a composition scheme for service providers also, up to 40 lakh rupees. Am I right? Yeah, 40 lakh rupees. They have to pay a composite cancel rate only 6%, not 18%, without ITC.
Right. 50
it is 50. It's 50 lakh. Okay, 50 lakh.
Service 50.
Yeah. So that is the major. And Kerala, it was decided that Kerala would be permitted to impose 1% cess on intrastate trade, not interstate, intrastate trade. That's what Kerala requested, that we are very happy with it. And also Council recommended to the Government of India that the additional borrowing for capital expenditure rebuild will have to be considered for any state which is affected by natural disasters.
Okay.
And as for realty sector,
Well, that is the Finance Minister of Kerala, and that is important. The clarification that's come in there from Thomas Isaac that the 1% calamity cess that the GST Council has approved today for the state of Kerala for rehabilitation will be on intrastate trade, not interstate trade. So it removes some of the concerns that Pratik. Watching our special coverage of the 32nd meeting of the GST Council, which has just concluded. As I pointed out, several decisions being taken to try and reduce the compliance burden for small traders and MSMEs. No rate decisions being taken by the GST Council today. Mani, as we go forward, what are you going to be watching out for? Several decisions being deferred and being referred to group of ministers. But on balance, do you believe that a lot of what needs to be done to address compliance-related issues have now been dealt with?
I think they have done a very good job in terms of ensuring that the compliance is minimized to the extent possible. What we will have to wait and see is that the new return filing process, which is expected on a trial basis from April 19, is something which happens smoothly without any glitches. And that is the reason why I said earlier, in order to ensure that there are no glitches in terms of the system load or what level of data the system can handle, I believe the changes which have been made today will be very good in that connection. Here we have to bear in mind that of the approximately 80 lakh odd people who are registered in GST, I understand that 80% of the revenues come from around 80,000 dealers. And therefore, to a very large extent, there has to be a concerted measure to ensure that these 80,000 dealers who contribute 80% of the revenues to the government are treated very well when it comes to their compliance. They should not have any hitches in terms of uploading this data or uploading a GSTR freebie. So that is where I believe all the action is presently being directed, which is a very, very good sign. I had just one point on the compensation cess. Now, I think the cess is something which is completely going against the GST architecture. And this is something, as we have discussed in the past, prior to GST, we used to have 16 different types of cesses. And when GST was introduced 2 months before that, we had a press release which said that one of the objectives of introducing GST was to get rid of all these cesses. Now, the fact that we are having one cess being reintroduced now, ostensibly for a very good cause and very noble cause, it would open the floodgate for all other states to have various kinds of cesses. And that would completely defeat the purpose of simplicity in GST.
Yes, you're right on that front, and this is a concern that we've raised several times over. Pratik and Mani, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. We will check back with you shortly on more analysis of these numbers. But very quickly, here's the Finance Minister of Delhi and the Finance Minister of Assam on the decisions taken by the GST Council. We're back in a moment.
First of all, that today general turnover exemption, threshold exemption has been increased from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs. But now it will be 40 lakhs as well as 20 lakhs. States have been given freedom to take either of the two. So in Assam it may be 20 lakhs, in Bengal it may be 40 lakhs or vice versa. So that is one decision. Then service taxpayers has been given composition facility. It will be now 50 lakhs up to 6%. For MSME, also there are some announcement on limit which will be made by FM. Fourth, that real estate and lottery has gone to GOM, and GOM hopefully will be constituted within a day or two. And the next council, this decision will be taken.
How soon will states decide whether they want to stay in 40 or in 20 limit?
1 week time has been given.
All states will have to write back to the council?
Write back to the council that yes, I am opting for 20, I am opting for 40.
And so what about when you talk of real estate, was there a sticky issue which is why it was referred to GOM?
Yeah, consensus could not be achieved. But general mood is that yes, we need to help. But to what extent, what is the manner, how we will do that. So all these issues will go to now a GOM and GOM will decide.
So when it comes to natural disaster cess, Kerala has been allowed?
Kerala has been allowed to put additional surcharge of 1% to actually help in reconstruction process. So Kerala's long-standing demand has been accepted.
But you were also member and chairman of cess, which was sugar cess. That continues to remain pending?
I mean, till Supreme Court decision comes, it will not happen. But Kerala has been made exception.
आज जीएसटी काउंसिल की मीटिंग हुई और सभी मिनिस्टर्स ने मिलके जीएसटी काउंसिल्स में कुछ अहम फैसले लिए हैं जिससे देश के छोटे व्यापारियों को फ़ायदा होगा। छोटे व्यापारियों के लिए पहले कंपोजिट टैक्स लिमिट जो कि 1 करोड़ तक थी 1% टैक्स पर, वो अब बढ़ा के 1.5 करोड़ रुपए कर दी गई है। तो ये एक बड़ा फैसला है क्योंकि व्यापारियों को इसकी कंप्लायंस करने में, रिटर्न फाइल करने में बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती थी। और कंपोजिट टैक्स स्कीम में जो टैक्स है वो तो क्वार्टरली पे करना होगा, लेकिन रिटर्न 1 साल में एक बार फाइल करना होगा। तो सबसे बड़ा फ़ायदा उसको ये मिलने वाला है। दूसरा, जैसा आइजक साहब ने कहा, सर्विसेज की कंपोजिट लिमिट जो है वो 50 लाख रुपए की गई है। वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन है सर्विसेज के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से। तीसरा, थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट बढ़ा के 20 लाख रुपए और 40 लाख रुपए के 2 स्लैब बना दिए गए हैं और राज्य अपने हिसाब से, अपने बिजनेस के हिसाब से कंसल्ट करके चूज़ कर सकते हैं कि कौन सा बिजनेस, कौन सा मॉडल उनको लेना है। 20 लाख की थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट का लेना है। दूसरा, 2 इश्यूज़ और थे। प्रॉपर्टी को लेकर था, जो अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन हाउस हैं उनको लेके था। उसमें हमारा रिजर्वेशन ये था कि इससे घर महंगे हो जाएंगे, इससे घरों पर पहले से ज़्यादा टैक्स देना पड़ेगा जीएसटी के तहत, क्योंकि अभी वो 12% में देता है तो आईटीसी क्लेम करता है, 18% 12% पर आईटीसी क्लेम करता है और उसके बाद उसका कैस्केडिंग इम्पैक्ट आता है। लेकिन अभी अगर 5% सॉलिड कर दिया जाएगा और वो आईटीसी क्लेम नहीं करेगा तो उसका सीधा सीधा इम्पैक्ट बायर पे पड़ेगा। इसलिए घरों को महंगा ना किया जाए और इसीलिए उसको पूरे उसके न्यूएंस से डिस्कस करने के लिए ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को दिया गया है। दूसरा इशू लॉटरी का भी था कि दिल्ली जैसा राज्य तो ना लॉटरी बेचता है ना खरीदता है, लेकिन कुछ राज्य हैं जो लॉटरी बेचते हैं, कुछ राज्य हैं जो दूसरे राज्यों से भी खरीदते हैं और अपने यहाँ भी खरीदना बेचना अलाउ करते हैं। तो इशू ये था कि उसमें 28% टैक्स दूसरे राज्यों के उस पर लगाया जाए, लेकिन उसको और बाकी में 12% है जो लॉटरी बेचते हैं। तो इसमें काफ़ी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट था, तो इसको भी ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को दिया गया है, इस मसले को भी, क्योंकि कुछ राज्य हैं जो लॉटरी के उसमें हैं और उसमें हाँ इसमें पूरा कर लेते हैं। दूसरा एक इशू दिल्ली का भी हमने उठाया था कि दिल्ली और पौंडीचेरी खास तौर से पिछली बार आईजीएसटी का सारा पैसा इन्होंने कंसोलिडेटेड फंड ऑफ इंडिया में डाल दिया था और उसके बाद में वो दिल्ली को कुछ नहीं मिला उसमें से। हमने कहा है कि इससे पहले आईजीएसटी का सारा पैसा एडॉक सेटलमेंट के तहत बांट दिया जाए, क्योंकि अगर वो कंसोलिडेटेड फंड ऑफ इंडिया में जाएगा तो फिर से दिल्ली और पौंडीचेरी को नहीं मिलता है।